In this video, I'll be discussing whether or not your genetics puts you at a disadvantage when it comes to your beatboxing. So long story short, this morning I was trying to learn a new sound. I was like, you know what? Decoy, his whistles are really awesome. I want to learn that. I watched a tutorial, looked it up, and the guy said that I needed to be able to do a three-leaf clover with my tongue. I can't do that. I genetically cannot do that. And I was like, wow, am I never going to be able to do this whistle in my life? And then I started thinking, I'm like, there are plenty of beatboxers out there who probably will never be able to learn certain sounds because they are limited by their genetic ability. And so I started looking into it. And today we're going to be diving in to see whether or not it's true. Disclaimer, this is not a Harvard study by any means. I'm a college student doing some random research on Google. But I think it'd be awesome to talk about, so let's hop right in. The first thing I did after discovering this revelation that I might never be able to do this whistle was hop on Instagram and ask my followers questions about their genetic abilities, and because majority of them are beatboxers and they might experience these same things. So I asked a few questions and we're going to go right through them. First question was, can you roll your R's? The reason why I bring this up is there are a few sounds that require you to be able to do this. One that comes to mind first is the tongue bass. And also the OD bass. Both those sounds require your tongue to oscillate in a forward direction. So I had about 570 participants in this poll. 445 of them can roll their R's, and 125 cannot roll their R's. So roughly 78% of my participants could roll their R's and 22% couldn't. So roughly around only 1/4, if we extrapolate this to the population, can't roll their R's. Like I said, this is not a Harvard study, but I'm going to do it just for the sake of this video. Second question I asked was, can you curl your tongue sideways? Basically, the sound that would affect this majorly is a click roll. Whenever you do that, you curl your tongue and then it oscillates while it's curled. I had a total of 711 participants. 499 of them could curl their tongue sideways and 212 could not curl their tongue sideways. So that's roughly 70% of the population that could and 30% that could not. Compared to the previous question, there's a little bit more of the cannot side. We'll see how the other questions hold up. The third question I asked, which is goes back to what I said at the beginning, was, can you do a 3 or 4 leaf clover with your tongue? Which I don't know how in the world people do 4, more or less 3. I can't do that. When I think of 3 or 4 leaf clover, I'm still not sure. This might just affect certain whistles, like I said, the decoy whistle, or other things, we haven't discovered yet. This one is a little bit shocking. We had a total of 717 participants on this poll. 182 said they could do it, and 535 said they could not do it, which is totally different compared to the other two questions. So in this poll, 75% could not do a 3-leaf or 4-leaf clover and 25% could, which I think is kind of crazy. I mean, it makes sense. It's really, I don't understand how it's even possible that someone can make that shape with their tongue. The next question, can you make a circle with your tongue? In this poll, I had 739 participants. 663 said they could make a circle with their tongue, and only 76 said they could not. This is probably the most drastic one of all the questions. 90% could do it, and 10% could not. Well, sounds that I think that would impact making a circle with your tongue would be a sound called the flute whistle, which was coined by D'Lo. I can't do it. I'll play a video to show you how it's done. I do it more like a, but they do it like a. The fifth question, I started to focus more on the teeth and moved away from the tongue. Can you do any special sounds because of a gap in your teeth? I feel like I've heard some stories before of beatboxers being able to do a certain whistle or maybe a certain squeak because maybe they had a chipped tooth, or maybe they didn't have a certain tooth in a certain spot, or maybe there was a gap, maybe their front teeth had a gap in it, so they were able to do that. I had 634 participants in this poll. 214 said they could do a special sound because of a gap in their teeth, and 420 said they could not do that. 66% of people cannot do a special sound because of a certain gap in their teeth, or they may not have a gap at all, so that just puts them at a disadvantage. And 34% did have a gap, or if they did have a gap in the first place, they could do a special sound. The last question I asked had to do with braces, which the question was, have braces prevented you from being able to do a certain sound? Some people never have to get braces like me, and I'm very thankful I didn't have to, but I do hear a lot of people having to get braces, and either one, they started beatboxing and then their progress deteriorates, or two, they don't know how to beatbox and they try, but they can't do certain sounds because of their braces. The reason I wanted to ask this question is because whether or not you get braces is dependent on your teeth genetics. If you have really bad teeth genetics and your teeth are all crooked and they're in really bad positions, you're most likely going to have to get braces. If we check out the pie graph, 51% of the people that had braces were not able to do a certain sound, and 49% were fine. So we're split 50-50. Now, the reason why I ask these questions is because I'm thinking back to the ability to beatbox. Most of the time, your ability to beatbox and the skill level you're at is because of your hard work. If you want to get a certain sound down, if you just do it over and over again, you'll eventually get it. If you want to get a certain pattern down, you just practice until you get it right and make sure it's very clean. So most of these things can be figured out through practice and just consistency. But the problem is, what if you try to do a sound, but you're not able to do it because you're genetically barred from it? So say you wanted to learn, for example, the decoy whistle. I'm not even sure if that's how you do it with the 3-leaf clover, but I'm just going to say it is. Say you can't do the 3-leaf clover. That's the only way that the decoy whistle will come out. So, and like, you put it at a disadvantage because you can't do that sound. If someone wants to do tongue bass, say they like the sound of it, they like the texture, and it fits their style. They just hear it from another beatboxer and are like, wow, that's dope, I want to do it. But then they find out they can't roll their R's. That's really sad to think about because of their genetics, they can't roll their R's, and in result, they can't do the tongue bass. And they will most likely never be able to do that sound. I couldn't imagine not being able to do a sound because I'm just genetically barred. And just thinking about that definitely does put you at a disadvantage. Because if you can't do a certain sound because your tongue, your muscles, the way your genetics are designed, or because of your teeth or whatnot, it may prevent you from finding something, or maybe finding your true style. On the flip side, say that somebody has a gap in their teeth and they're able to do a otherworldly, crazy whistle that's never been heard before. Will you, someone who doesn't have that gap, ever be able to do that sound? I don't advise you to go out and try to mess your teeth up or something like that so you can do that sound. That is probably not the best course of action, but it is food for thought. That person who has a gap in their teeth who can do that specific sound might be the only person in the world who can do that sound because of that certain exact specific gap in their teeth or whatever. Maybe they have a different mouth size or whatever the situation is. That person might be the only person to ever do it. And I think that's like a competitive advantage to that person because other people can't. I wanted to bring a real life example up. I am not 100% sure about this. I tried reaching out to some Australians to help me confirm on this story, but I kind of heard a lot of this back in Discord. There's a Australian beatboxer named CLR. He can do this really crazy bass. I think this is how the story goes. I think he broke his nose, and after his nose had healed, he was able to do the sound in a certain texture, and it's mind-blowing. And he's like one of the only people that can do it because for whatever reason, he broke his nose and then all of a sudden it healed and then it made it into a way, probably his nasal cavity was changed in some aspect, or maybe it was shaped differently after it healed, and now he can do a crazy bass. It might not be possible for any of us to ever do that because his nasal cavity is in a way that can't be replicated. So the second thing I wanted to talk about was the genetic role in sounds and abilities between men and women. The reason why I bring this up is because genetically, men and women are built differently. According to a study by the National Library of Medicine, the female vocal folds are on average 60% shorter than men's. And in result, because they're shorter, they can reach higher frequencies. And because men's are longer, I guess they have longer vibrations and they can reach those lower tones. So it begs the question, are men at an advantage in the lower tones and are women at an advantage in the higher tones? And the answer is just, it's more of a rhetorical question, but if you think about it, if I were to do a throat bass, if a woman tries to do that, it might sound way differently than what a typical throat bass is intended to sound like because their frequency and at the in the technique to do throat bass, it may not mesh well. Now there are some sounds that I think that have no dependency on your genetics. For example, like a kick drum or maybe a snare. Those sounds can be learned from just practicing over and over again, but there are certain things like vocal techniques that are a genetic thing, and it's not even genetic, more like a biological thing. The last thing I want to talk about is I want to encourage people who can't do certain sounds because, I guess, of genetics, that there are other ways to do it, which there is hope. This is not in every case, but there are some times where you can find alternatives. For example, before I could do the inward OD bass, I couldn't do it for years, and I thought I just could never be able to do it. And I developed another way to do it. I just did a hollow click roll, so it was like a. So it would sound like. It didn't sound exactly like, but it was an alternative, and I did use it for some time until I eventually did find a way to do it. Just continue trying to push the limits of the mouth, and you never know what you might be able to do. I would say don't let your genetics or your biology be the thing that prevents you from trying to learn a new sound. So I want to know what y'all think. Do genetics put beatboxers at an advantage or disadvantage? I'm very curious to hear what you think. Please drop your comments below and let me know what you think. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.